Imagine climbing a vertical cliff with nothing but a bamboo ladder, no ropes, no harness, and swarms of giant bees buzzing all around you. Sounds like a death wish, right? But for some people, this isn't a stunt. It's how they harvest honey. And they've been doing it for generations. So, why risk your life for something you can buy at the store? Turns out, this honey is unlike anything you've ever seen, and the story behind it is even wilder. High in the Himalayan foothills of central Nepal, there's no traffic noise, no skyscrapers, just wind, the echo of waterfalls, the occasional call of a jungle bird, and clinging to the sheer cliff walls, like gold mines on gray stone, are the hives, massive, exposed, and humming with life. This is the territory of Apis laboriosa, the Himalayan giant honeybee, the largest honeybee on Earth, twice the size of what you'll find in your backyard. Their hives can stretch more than 5 feet wide and hang from vertical cliffs up to 100 meters tall. That's a 30-story building. And nestled in villages scattered along these mountain ridges are the people who harvest them. They're known locally as Kulung, Gurung, or Rai, depending on the region. But they share a deep bond with the land and with the bees. To them, honey is more than food. It's medicine, a sacred offering, a connection to the spirits of the forest and the gods who rule the skies. And harvesting it? That's not just a job. It's a ritual. Every spring and autumn, just before the harvest begins, there's a ceremony. A fire is lit and offerings are made. Flowers, rice, sometimes a local liquor called raksi. Elders chant to the forest spirits. Families usually fast the night before to get lucky, because what they're about to do could kill them. There are no helmets, ropes, nor fancy gear. Just a primitive bamboo ladder, ropes of braided vine, and a few bundles of burning green leaves, used to make thick smoke that calms the bees, or at least tries to. The designated harvester, always an experienced climber, usually male and often over 40, ties a cloth around his face, grabs a long bamboo pole with a crescent blade at the end, and begins the climb. But he's not alone. Down below, villagers anchor the ropes and feed up tools. A second man tends the smoke torch, dangling it just below the hive. Elders watch silently. Children sometimes peek from the brush, their eyes wide. It's a coordinated dance. Every movement rehearsed, every step steeped in knowledge passed down over centuries. And then, hanging in the air, surrounded by thousands of angry bees, the harvester strikes. With careful sweeps of the pole, he slices through the honeycomb. A basket, lowered from above, catches the dripping slabs of the golden treasure. One mistake, and it's over. A misstep, a rope snap, a sting to the face that causes a flinch at the wrong moment, and the fall would be fatal. But for these climbers, danger is not the story. It's just part of the job. Because what they're really protecting is something far more important. A way of life, the honey that gets you high. But not all honey is created equal. What drips from these Himalayan cliffs isn't the kind you swirl into your tea or drizzle on toast. It's darker and thinner, almost reddish in hue, and far more strong than anything you'll find on a grocery store shelf. The locals call it the mad honey, and that name is for a good reason. In small doses, it's medicinal, used traditionally to treat high blood pressure, coughs, and even anxiety. But take a little too much, and things get weird. Mad honey contains grayanotoxins, a naturally occurring neurotoxin from the rhododendron flowers the bees feed on. In tiny amounts, it causes a warm flush, a feeling of lightness. In larger doses, hallucinations, dizziness, vomiting, temporary paralysis. In rare cases, even death. That's right, this honey can kill you. And yet it's in high demand, especially from people who aren't from here. In the past few years, mad honey has exploded in popularity among curious tourists, wellness influencers, and black market buyers. Some claim it's a natural psychedelic. Others see it as a miracle cure. But for the harvesters, it's something else entirely. A sacred substance, the greatest gift from the mountain gods, something to be respected, not commodified. And that's where the tension begins. Because while global interest has brought more money into these communities, it's also brought risk. Some foreigners show up wanting to buy jars, no questions asked. Others try to climb the cliffs themselves, hoping for an adventure or content for their socials. Some even pay local teens to harvest out of season, bypassing rituals and safety, just to get their hands on the honey faster. The result? Overharvesting, severe injuries, hives collapsing, and bees abandoning cliffs that had been used for generations. But here's what most outsiders don't understand. This honey isn't just about the buzz. It's about balance. There's only one harvest in spring and maybe another in the fall. That's it. Too much interference and the colony dies. Too many interruptions and the entire ecosystem gets thrown off. The elders have always known this. That's why ceremonies are timed to the moon. Why only certain cliffs are harvested in a given year. Why children aren't allowed to climb until they've watched, silently, for seasons. It's not just tradition. It's biology, conservation and wisdom that was never written down, but lived, refined, and protected. And yet, with money on the table and outsiders pushing in, the system is starting to crack. Some younger harvesters are tempted, others are frustrated, feeling stuck between respecting tradition and surviving in a changing world. Because while the honey might be ancient, the pressures around it are very, very modern. And the question now isn't just how to harvest it, it's whether this tradition can survive at all. Before dawn breaks across the treetops, the honey hunters are already deep in motion, walking single file through the forest, their shoulders heavy with gear, rope coils, bamboo ladders, wicker baskets, torches. The air is damp and cool, and their breath mixes with the fog curling between branches. No one speaks unless they have to. There's no ceremony yet, only quiet steps towards something that demands absolute focus. The cliffs don't appear suddenly. They rise slowly through the trees like a curtain being drawn back. Smooth and sheer, their surface looks impossible. But high up, scattered like dark blisters on the pale rock, are the hives. Massive living things humming with movement. Each one is guarded by tens of thousands of bees, and they're already awake. The team wastes no time. Ropes are anchored to thick roots and trunks. A bamboo ladder, lightweight but strong, is unfurled and tested for weak spots. Torches are lit, and dried brush begins to smoke, curling upward in loose spirals toward the hive. Then the harvester steps forward. He doesn't wear protective gear. No helmet, no climbing harness, not even gloves. Just layers of fabric wrapped around his limbs, a face scarf, and the kind of calm that only comes from doing something dangerous enough times that fear becomes muscle memory. He grabs the ladder and climbs. Each step groans under his weight. The wind nudges him like an afterthought. Below him, smoke continues rising, barely reaching the hives but enough to confuse the bees. Not calm them, just enough to delay their attack. And then he's there, face to face with the hive. The buzzing is deafening now. The bees cover his arms, his shoulders, his neck. Some find skin and sting. He doesn't flinch. Instead, he draws his bamboo pole, sharpened at one end, and slices carefully into the edge of the comb. Then, the golden honey begins to ooze out immediately. A rope basket rises from below. He guides the honeycomb in, slab by slab, working with precision and patience. One hand steers, the other steadies his body against the wind. Every movement is controlled, because even a small mistake up here doesn't just hurt, it kills. Below, the others watch in silence. No one gives instructions. No one looks away. Eventually, the basket lowers, filled with wild honey. He ties off his pole, gathers himself, and begins the descent. And only when his feet return to solid earth does anyone exhale. Because the real victory here isn't the honey. It's coming back down. For generations, these honey hunts happened away from cameras, away from outsiders, tucked deep in the folds of Nepal's mountains, witnessed only by the village and the bees. But the world has changed. And somehow this ancient practice has become a viral curiosity. It started slowly. A few travelers stumbling across stories of mad honey on niche forums or YouTube began to make the trek. Then came the documentaries, the drone footage, the influencers posing near cliffs with jars of golden liquid. And suddenly, what was once sacred began to look like spectacle. Tour groups now follow trails that were once walked only by locals. Some come to watch the harvest, cameras in hand. Others want to taste the honey, especially the potent kind, the mad honey known for its psychoactive kick. On the black market, one small jar can fetch hundreds of dollars. That kind of demand travels fast. For the honey hunters, this attention is a double-edged blade. On one hand, it brings money, more than they've ever seen from traditional buyers. Some families can now afford better tools, medicine, even send their kids to school. But on the other hand, it brings something far more dangerous: pressure. The kind that whispers, harvest more, sell more, climb again, even if the bees aren't ready. The harvests, once done a few times a year at most, are happening more frequently. Tourists want to see the action. Buyers want more jars. And when money enters sacred space, things shift. Quietly, sometimes permanently. Some younger hunters have started skipping the rituals. No chants, no offerings, just smoke and rope. Others no longer wait for elders to guide them. They go alone. The connection to tradition is fraying, thread by thread. And imitation is becoming a real problem. In nearby towns, jars labeled Himalayan wild honey are popping up everywhere. Most of it fake, some even laced with chemicals to mimic the effects of the real thing. For outsiders, it's impossible to tell the difference. For the real hunters, it's devastating. Their identity is being diluted by counterfeits and copied by people who have never climbed a cliff or earned a bee sting. The land, too, is feeling the weight. Smoke torches blacken the cliff walls. Footpaths widen with tourist boots. Plastic bottles show up where sacred flowers once bloomed. No one meant to hurt anything. But the damage is happening all the same. And yet hope remains. In some villages, elders are beginning to speak up, not to stop the harvests, but to protect them. They're creating codes of practice, limiting how often cliffs can be climbed, teaching new generations not just how to gather honey, but why it matters. Because what's at stake isn't just honey. It's memory. It's balance. It's the fragile thread that holds together knowledge, ritual, and survival in a world that's moving too fast. Every drop of honey gathered on those cliffs holds more than just sweetness. It holds memory, the kind that isn't written in books or recorded in files, but passed from hand to hand, story to story, scar to scar. For the honey hunters, every harvest is more than just work. It's a ritual, a reunion with the mountains, a conversation with ancestors who climbed before them. When they walk those forest paths or raise smoke toward the hives, they're not just gathering honey. They're honoring something ancient, something stubbornly sacred. In a world that celebrates speed and spectacle, what they do feels almost like a rebellion. Not loud, not angry, just persistent. A refusal to let an old way of life disappear quietly. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. Because these aren't warriors or celebrities. They're fathers, sons, uncles. Ordinary people who choose to risk everything for something invisible to most. Meaning. They aren't climbing for clicks or trophies. They're climbing because it's what they were taught. Because they believe the bees must be respected. Because someone once whispered in their ear, "This is how we survive. This is who we are." That kind of bravery doesn't scream. It doesn't wear medals or post on social media. It simply climbs, again and again, until it becomes part of the landscape. But it's fragile. The cliffs may be strong, but the knowledge, the techniques, the prayers, the timing, they live in people, not stone. And people forget. They move on. They chase newer, easier, louder things. So every time a young villager chooses to learn the old ways, to follow the smoke, to climb slowly and listen, it matters. It's not just about bees or honey. It's about deciding that some things are worth preserving, even when no one is watching. That's the quiet power of legacy. And yet this story isn't frozen in time. it's evolving. Some communities are partnering with researchers to better understand the bees and how to protect them. Others are creating local cooperatives, selling honey responsibly and making sure the profits return to the village. There are efforts to document the techniques, to archive the chants, to teach the meanings behind every movement before they're lost. It's not about resisting the modern world. It's about choosing what to carry forward, because the future isn't guaranteed. The cliffs may crumble, the bees may vanish. But if even a handful of honey hunters pass on what they know and why it matters, then something endures. And maybe that's the lesson here. That tradition isn't just about keeping the past alive. It's about making the present meaningful. And in these mountains, high above the noise of the world, there are still people who believe in that, who risk everything for it. Not because they have to, but because someone once taught them. This is how you honor the wild. In a world obsessed with speed and convenience, it's easy to forget that some things still take time, courage, and quiet devotion. Honey hunting in the Himalayas isn't just about collecting something sweet. It's about protecting a relationship between humans, nature, and tradition, one climb at a time. It's a story of risk, but also of reverence. A reminder that not all bravery looks like headlines. Sometimes it looks like a man on a ladder, swaying in the wind, guided only by smoke, memory, and faith. If this story gave you a new perspective, or made you think about tradition in a different way, consider sharing it. Leave a comment with other rituals or communities you think deserve to be seen, and let's keep these stories alive together. And if you want more grounded cinematic journeys into overlooked corners of the world, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.